On week 3, season 4 of iRacing, there was one particular race that really captured my attention: the GT Sprint Series race at the brand new Mexico City circuit. Not only would this be a challenge understanding a brand new track, but also an interesting set of weather circumstances that had me driving on a wet circuit for the very first time on iRacing. With a lot of new things to adapt to, will we be able to rise to the challenge and bring home a complete result? Let's dive in and find out. So here we are, let's go through a qualifying lap for my first race here at the Mexico City circuit. And to paint the picture of why this race intrigued me so much, the weather was the interesting factor here. Basically, it had been raining all the way up until the point of the official race practice as we charged down here into the turn 1, 2, 3 sequence, and it left us with a very wet track for the qualifying session, and it will be drying up throughout the race, eventually ending with a dry track. Now, the interesting thing for me was how the car would perform through that evolving weather situation. I've not driven in the wet on iRacing yet, and it just made for a really intriguing set of circumstances. Now coming through turns 4 and 5 down towards the bottom of the circuit. Turn 6 here with an interesting double apex, really trying to square the car up, get on the power, avoid the curbs as we now charge into the final part of the lap. This very interesting S's section, really got to flow the car, trying to trust the car a little bit over these curbs. You definitely wanted to take lots of curbs to get a fast lap, but they were still very slippery, trying to break a little bit offline, trying to get on the power as early as I dare, and yeah, really needed to have confidence in the car. Now fortunately, the BMW was a strong car in these conditions. It gave me a lot of confidence, and I was starting to eke out some decent lap times. See, I'm door card number 25 of this race. Lots of close iRacing in this one, but I was already starting to show that my car was potentially going to be further up the field. And we're on a really decent lap here. No real mistakes, not sliding the car around too much. Good exit out of this final corner. The BMW was really strong out of this final corner. And we're going to come across the line for the second flying qualifying lap for a 1 minute 52 flat, which was going to start me in position number 3 for this 40-minute race. So the question would be, how would the track dry up? How would the car cope? And how would I cope with that changing condition? Well, the safety car pulls in, the leader jumps away, and we're underway to find that exact thing out. Now immediately there is some drama behind with a bunch of BMWs. I didn't even notice that during the race, but the top 4 cars, all BMWs, were flying in towards turn number 1 here, this very, very long front straight at Mexico City. We've got the inside line braking early enough to make the apex, and now side by side with car number 6 through turn 2 with the inside line for myself in turn 3. Very hard to go around the outside in these wet conditions at turn 3, so we maintain our 3rd place off the line and make our way into lap number 1. Fortunately, it was a nice calm first lap for me. I seemed to have a good idea of what this car could do in this exact condition. My challenge was going to be slowly pushing that limit through the race, maybe not trying to hurt the tyre in the process. I really had no idea exactly how to tackle that changing condition. Now a bit of a fight up in front for the lead of the race brings us back to the back bumper here of car 17 into the stadium section for the first time. See so much spray coming off these cars on this wet track. There will be no rain during the race at all, but it was certainly a bit trickier in the spray of the cars and trying to find your brake markers, etc., as we come through to finish that first lap here at Mexico City. Push on to lap number 5, and we'd certainly found a nice little groove to start this race, keeping up with the leaders. Car number 6 behind still there, but we were putting some significant time into the pair of Porsches in positions 5 and 6, so it was certainly looking like the win of this race, the top positions, would be amongst the 4 of us here. On lap number 6 we have a pass for a change of the lead, car 17 making his way by car 18 at turn number 6, and that gave me a fresh incentive to push on here and see if we can't put a little bit more pressure on car 18, find ourselves up into second place. Unfortunately, the mistake is going to come from my side here at the start of lap number 7 into turn number 1, outbraking myself there, running wide, and then making a real mess of turn 2 and 3 as well. Left me with a very poor exit out of turn 3, car number 6 right on the rear bumper with some momentum. We're going to hold the inside line now into turn number 4. Braking early enough to make the apex, and car 6 does a good job here to stay around the outside and give himself the inside line for turn number 5, giving away that place, dropping back to 4th position, and really needing to reaccumulate myself here for the rest of this race. We certainly wanted to keep up with this trio of BMWs in front, losing pace now to the first and second cars, and immediately car 6 running wide at turn 7 and 8. So I definitely wanted to get back into my groove, put some pressure back on, see if we can't get back to this podium position. However, another mistake here at turn number 11. We get too much of that inside curve with too much throttle, just a little bit more than I had the previous lap, and that was enough to get the car into a spin, and we do contact that outside wall through that runoff area and hit the wall pretty hard there, as you can see. Now at this point, you can imagine I was pretty sure my race was over. I got a notification saying that I had rear end damage, and I was pretty confident that I didn't have a rear wing or a rear bumper, something which had happened in previous races in these GT3s. But as you can see on the B-roll, there is absolutely the bodywork is still on the car. It's just I don't know it at this point. Coming into the stadium section after that crash, McLaren coming up behind me, and I was pretty sure that I was going to be spinning the car out into this final corner. But not receiving a meatball flag through that stadium section allowed me to sort of push on, and as we come through turn number 1 on the next lap, the car stopping and turning, not losing the rear end immediately, I sort of felt, well, maybe we can push on with this one, and that's exactly what I did. Needing to trust the car, obviously, not being entirely sure how it would affect the rest of the race, but as we come into lap number 10 here, we have been starting to make our way back up in towards this Ford here. I'm back in position number 8 at this point, so we were sort of looking to see how much we could recover, with obviously the last part and the important part of a tyre change coming up as well. So here on lap number 15, we have had one of the lead cars make that first pit stop. As you see, there is a nice dry line there, and I am trying to keep an eye on the lap times that they are doing. You see, looking up at my top screen, looking at the standings that I have there, unfortunately that lack of attention on the road means I miss my braking marker here at turn 4 and almost undo my race once again. Thankfully my opponent there in the Ford was paying attention, so we're able to avoid any mess. But it was a case that because I hadn't done this race before, trying to run the strategy on the fly and seeing what sort of times were happening there means there was a lot going on, and that's sort of the interesting part about this race. A lot can happen with the strategies, a lot to think about, and I was really enjoying that aspect. So with 9 minutes of the race still to go, it was time for me to grab those dry tyres. I did need a little bit of fuel as well, and there was the potential that some of the runners in this race will be able to fuel save and actually go the entire distance without a stop. So coming into turn number 1 with those dry tyres and my fuel topped off, I had no idea what to expect from the car. And to be honest, the feeling of these new dry tyres on this drying track after being on worn wets was extremely weird. The car felt broken, and I was pretty confident that it was due to the damage that I had received before, but it felt the same in subsequent races as well. Give the tyres a couple of laps and things really started to turn on though. It's just a case of trying to trust the car, trust those dry tyres, stick to the dry line on the track, and just continue to push as carefully as you could. See, coming through the stadium section here on my second flying lap, and we are nearly 4 or 5 seconds faster than our previous best in this session. So jumping on the dry tyre at the right time was certainly going to be a big speed advantage in this race. Coming through to set a 1 minute 47 where I was doing 1 minute 52s prior, and the fastest lap of the race into this point. So with 5 minutes to go and some cars in front, how are things going to unfold? Well, up ahead you can see car number 6, who's on the dry tyre, having a battle here with car 16, who's still on the wets. They tangle coming out of turn number 5, and we are able to come up towards that car 16, and he immediately runs wide there out of turn number 6. So we're going to move up from position 9 to position 8, still with some cars in front who are on the wet tyre, and it's just a big chase now to the end of the race. Of course, with the speed difference, that sort of tangle is potentially possible, so if we keep to the back of some of these cars, it will be a really interesting phase where you catch them, how you get by with it still being wet off the dry racing line. Start of lap number 20 there, you saw we went past car number 1, who's come for a late decision to jump onto those dry tyres. So considering they were behind us when we had that crash, now came back up in front of them, showed that I came in at roughly the right time, up to 6th position. Position number 5, the Ford that we followed earlier, he's directly in front, and if you see on the pit stop times there on the relative, he's had a shorter pit stop than us. He's just come in for a splash of fuel to get him to the end of the race. He's still here on his used wet tyres. You can see the speed difference coming out of turn 6, pulling right alongside, but unable to go around the outside. Again, offline, I was very nervous that it would be extremely slippery, as even though these curbs and certain areas were drying up, I just wanted to be super careful. A spin now would really undo my race. Trying to get a good exit here out of turn 11, which I'm unable to do, so we're going to have to be trying to follow through the stadium section here, going to the racing line. But Mustang's being defensive there. He runs wide out of turn 12. We go up the inside now, the outside of the hairpin. Very tricky to stay around the outside here, hoping to keep the nose in, but unable to do so. Up and over the curb there towards the final corner. Behind we've got car 1, again he's on the dry tyre now, so his warm-up phase is happening. If we can't get by some of these cars, he'll be on a slightly fresher dry tyre. He might be a real threat to me come the end of the race. Plenty of traction as we head over the start-finish line to start lap number 21, getting by up into 5th position, and now the chase is on with just a couple of laps of this race to go. 7.6 seconds up the road is car number 14, Ferrari. He has not stopped. He's still on his wet tyres. He's had to do a bit of fuel saving, but would we be able to get by and get back to position number 4 where we were and recover to where we were before that spin? Final lap now, coming up towards turn number 4, and you see we've dramatically brought that gap down under a second as we come through turn 5. All about the traction here on this corner, the Ferrari not having a lot of it. Through turn 6, this is where we caught the Mustang in the previous laps, so it's a tricky part of the circuit to be catching. Got tons more grip, tons more speed, but not a lot of place to use it. Looking left and right, trying to see if there's a sneaky way by. Think about going to the outside here for turn number 10. Decide to simply work on the crisscross here. Really good exit out of turn 11, and immediately straight by that Ferrari as we head down towards turn 12 in this final stadium section. And I've got to admit that this felt like a bit of a win coming back to this 4th place position. Despite the spin, I made a decent strategy call, got what I could out of the car on the dry tyre, and ultimately I felt that I had a really good feel for this car around this track in these changing conditions. So as we come across the line to seal that 4th position, the question now remains, can I put a complete performance together at this circuit and come away with a really strong result here in this GT3 sprint race this week on iRacing? Well, it didn't go perfectly. Another race with a 4th place start, ended up finishing P11 after being boxed out a little bit by some of the better drivers in the field, and a 6th place start, fighting for a podium position, ended up in a spin while on the dry tyre on that slightly wet track still, and that ultimately dropped me a couple of places for a P6 finish. So although they were strong results, in finishing with some really strong iRating, I was still looking for that complete performance without mistakes something that I could feel proud of by the end of this week. So we're going to jump into qualifying for this fourth race, down into turn 1, and again we were learning, we were growing, and I was hoping to put in a really strong lap here, coming through the first sequence of corners nicely over those curbs and out the other side. 1 minute 52.8 on my first flying lap, P9 of these 25 cars, but a couple of tenths up as we head down to turn number 4. So if we would be able to really finish strongly in the last part of this lap, we could be looking at a low 1 minute 52, although I was hoping to go into the 151s as we come through the stadium section to finish off this qualifying lap. We are very close to that. This last corner to negotiate, showing on the prediction there a high 1 minute 51, nicely out of the final corner, and we are going to do a 1 minute 51.8, 0.8 off the pole sitting time for a 5th position starting here, out qualifying some very high iRacing drivers in the process. So forming up the grid here around the final corner, surrounded by BMWs once again, a Ferrari on pole and some notable threats behind, door card number 1 and 3 directly in the row behind me. Now the leader is a bit delayed in getting away there, but he makes a good jump on the BMWs, and I am side by side with door card number 6, another BMW. He's got a slightly better run on me here as we shift up the gears, charging down towards turn number 1. He has cleared the nose and does come across to take that defensive inside line, so we're on the brakes holding defense ourselves, and then some chaos there. A couple of those front running BMWs tangling and spinning out. We've got door 1 on the inside through turn 2. He's wide at turn 3, hard to get that exit out of that corner, and we are able to get good drive and stay in front of that Mercedes-Benz. Back to the replay though, here is the trouble at turn 1. Car number 2 touching car 9, and that results in car 5 spinning off as well. A couple of those front running BMWs now off the back of the race, trying to make their way up. Here we are side by side out of turn 3 with the Mercedes-Benz there, just no traction on the outside, and that allows us to move up into 4th position. It's a decent start to this lap, holding a nice conservative line here through the S's, and it's behind where some drama is unfolding. Here we are, door cards number 1 and 3, that row behind at the start, side by side into the stadium section. The Corvette making the pass at the hairpin, but on cold tyres, losing the rear of the car, holding up the Mercedes-Benz as well. So as we come across the start-finish line to complete lap number 1, we have ourselves a tidy gap to the cars behind. Some more drama here on lap 2. Coming out of turn 4, we've got the lead Ferrari. He spins the rear wheels as well, and just like that we find ourselves up into the 3rd place podium positions. How long will we be able to hold this place in the race? Well, the answer is not too long. That lead Ferrari, very quick driver here, and this is the very next lap. He's making a good run here through the S's, and after a few nervous moments in some of the previous races on this opening lap, I found myself being a tiny bit more conservative, and with some of these I-rated drivers around me, just a little bit more confident in these opening laps on the warm-up phase of the tyre. So we let the Ferrari by here into the hairpin, noting that those better drivers had had those issues, and lap number 1 found myself with that decent gap behind, and I was quite keen just to maintain that and run my own race in my own space through these opening parts. Here we are on lap number 7, catching a back marker here and looking for a good exit out of turn 11. Unfortunately don't get it. Going to need to follow this car through the stadium section potentially, hoping that they'll open the door and let me by. So much slower here into turn 12, and that's allowing door number 5, that BMW that was spun at the start of the race. He is now rapidly approaching, and this slower final sector for me definitely did not help. Now we actually make a tiny bit of contact there on the Corvette into the final corner, another poor exit, and you see just how quickly that number 5 car gets onto the rear bumper there, coming down the start-finish straight. The Corvette now does move over and it allows us to come by. I'm expecting car 5 to dive down the inside here, and I'd be happy to let him do that. Again, he's much faster, and my race feels like it's with some of those cars directly behind. Fortunately, he doesn't do that, so we take the normal racing line. He actually gets held up a little bit by that Corvette, and for the next few laps, I actually put out some pretty decent laps to keep this door 5 behind me, but again, I was quite willing to let him by if he had a decent run on me. Through the S's on this lap, things looking pretty decent. Start of lap 10 then, 22 minutes of this race still to go, and we've been increasing the gap back to that number 11 McLaren, and that was a pretty good little part of the race for me. Coming out of turn 3 though, a poor exit, and we now move over to let car number 5 by. Quite happy with the progress I'm making for my part of the race, but ultimately that wasn't going to be my race with this other BMW. Now a really big moment there, under brakes as I try to let car 5 by, actually getting the puddles that were still on the racing line, feeling that aquaplaning. Quite a nervous moment, almost ending our races there. But as we come here, 17 minutes to go, we start to see our first pit stops coming for the dry tyre. The leader of the race, in fact, he's in the pit lane, and 4 or 5 seconds behind, it's car number 9 also coming into the lane. Another one of those quick drivers who was involved in the mess on lap number 1. 14 minutes to go now, and we were trying to put out a couple more decent laps before choosing to pit ourselves. Coming through turn 11, we have a really big moment there that I need to catch, almost ending my race the same way as we did in race number 1. Fortunately though, catching that moment there. So with 10 minutes to go and a closing gap to the now car 7 Ferrari behind, but still with over 5.5 seconds on car 11, I decide that it's my turn to come in, grab a bit of fuel and those much quicker dry tyres. But my concern at this point was that I was only the second of those front runners to actually come in and make this stop. And my concern was that a number of drivers were going to commit to running the full race on the wet tyre, not taking a stop at all. The reality for me was that I didn't have the skill set right now to fuel save enough and look after these wet tyres on a dry track for that to be a good option for me. So it was just about committing to my strategy here and doing the best with it. Here with 6 minutes 22 seconds to go, we've caught car 16 still on that wet tyre, and rapidly approaching behind is car number 9. He was part of those first stoppers at 17 minutes to go, so he's got warm tyres and he's got lots of speed here. But through the S's, nowhere to go. Look for a really good exit here out of turn 11. Decent enough. Car 9 also moves to look as well, but we both have that dry tyre advantage. Unable to get up to car 24 here to make the pass into the stadium section, but car 9 dives down the inside in a desperate attempt to get by. He runs very wide, opens the door for me to sneak by the back marker and grab that spot back from the BMW. Coming into the final corner here on this lap, and the Porsche in front spins into the final corner, and we are therefore moving up to position number 10 with a handful of laps to go, now with some pressure from behind. The next few laps were really tidy for me, and I was quite happy with how those ones worked out. Now obviously car 9, as we see another spin there from the Ferrari to easily move us up another position, but the BMW behind obviously carrying some front damage from the lap 1 spin, and that was obviously giving me an advantage. But some strong laps here, a 44.0, a purple sector, purple lap for the race was all I could really do at this point. Now here currently in position number 9 with some other drivers up in front, we get a yellow flag for a spin from the number 11 McLaren. He is trying to commit to that long race strategy. So through the S's we come across that recovering car with the number 12 Porsche directly in front of him. Get a nice run out of turn number 11 with enough speed overlap to get by the McLaren here into the stadium section. The BMW behind not being able to do that, so that gap behind is starting to grow even more, and it gives me the confidence that I won't be needing to look directly in the mirrors here into the final couple of laps. Coming through the final corner, and that Porsche in front has to dive into the pit lane. Same with the number 11 McLaren behind. So both of those cars unable to fuel save enough to get to the very end of the race. And as we take the white flag to start the final lap of this one, you see I was looking up at the monitor there, an 8.6 seconds advantage up the road is that number one Mercedes-Benz. But what I was curious about was the lap times. A 1 minute 44 on my previous lap played a 1 minute 51 on the previous lap for the Mercedes-Benz. So a really good lap from me, a slightly poorer lap from the Mercedes, and potentially we would be able to get up to and try and pass one more car by the end of this race. But as we come into turn number 4 and 5 here, it was quite clear that despite this being a really good race for myself with good pace and about as much as I can do with my driver skill set at the moment, I was going to be outplayed here by some better I-rated drivers who had the ability to fuel save, tyre save, and ultimately get through this race at a quicker overall pace. There's only one other car in front of me who has actually stopped for tyres, and he came from the lead of the race to do that stop initially. Even he will not be able to get back to the position that he pitted from. But there was absolutely no chance that I was going to be able to run that strategy. As we come into the stadium section here for the final time, we're up slightly on what is this race best lap time from myself, so we're potentially going to walk away here with the fastest lap of the race, proving that it is about as much as I can do in this one, bringing the gap there under 2 seconds as we come around the final corner. See the Mercedes really struggling to get on the power there, half a second just in that final corner, but at 1.4 seconds up the road, he's going to take that 6th position. We come through for 7th, a slightly painful race there as a lot of strategy differences compared to previous races. If everyone had done in a similar fashion as they had done prior, I think I could have been 5th, maybe even 4th position in that race. But my best results, my best drive of the week, certainly happy enough to take that one away. A 1:43.6, that final lap of the race, was the fastest lap of the race. So we did all we could, we got the results we could, and the upside was that I did have a good enough set of races there to elevate myself up to A license as well. So lots of positives to take away from this week. A big improvement on my week 1 performance in GT3. Certainly a fan of this Mexico circuit. So like I said, lots of positives to take away from this week on iRacing. I was really happy with how I adapted to some tricky conditions, and that sort of race scenario where you're chasing the track, tracing the conditions, trying to make the right strategy calls, are truly some of my favorite types of racing in any sim. Of course, we weren't quite able to nab a podium result, but I was happy with the iRacing game that I got this week, and grabbing that A license, increasing that safety rating, was really a nice way to top it all off. It obviously opens up the IMSA series for me, and we'll certainly be giving some of those a go over the coming weeks. But I would love to know, how did you find the Mexico City racing this week? Did you purchase this track for the upcoming season? Let me know in the comments. I'd love to know what you think of the track and the racing that you had on it. As always, thank you so much for watching to this part of the video. Subscribe if you are new around here. And as always, guys, race hard, stay positive. We'll see you in the next one. Cheers.